Okay, so before we move on to our next lesson, which is going to be lesson 5, where we are going to be looking at the ellipse, we're going to right now take a look at understanding what are triangles and quads in 3D modeling, because we're going to actually make a slight change in the ear. But before we do that, I need to explain to you some really important concepts in 3D modeling and when it comes to Blender. So the first thing that I want you to do is make sure that you save this file. So this should be still at lesson 4. Okay. Next, I want you to go under Solid View over here. So the thing to understand about the subdivision modifier is that anything that you do with the subdivision modifier, it's always going to create the underlying 3D structure of your model with quads. So what is a quad? Okay, so what we want to do is go ahead and zoom out and shift the middle mouse button over here. And we're just going to take a look at this object over here. So this again was a light source that we had created for the cycles renderer, and it's simply a plane. So if you remember, we had done Shift A and added a plane. Okay, and we simply rotated this. So if we switch to edit mode over here, what you will see is that this plane is actually created with 4 vertices. So you can see that this is one vertex over here. Shift key down, this is one vertex, this is another one, and this is another one. So what this is, that this is a quad. A quad is something that is made up of 4 vertices. Okay? Now don't save anything in this file because we're going to do a few things. This is just so you can understand the explanation that I'm going to give you about what are triangles and quads in 3D modeling. So I'm just going to go ahead and shut this off over here, the snapping tool. So if I go ahead and click on this vertex over here, so make sure that you're in the front view. And I just want you to take this and just make it go up, just like this. So when you do that, you'll see that what you get is a triangle over here, and then there's another triangle in the back. So if I do the middle mouse button to rotate this, just to see, shift middle mouse button to pan and just rotate it, what you'll see is that the square shape that we were looking at, which was a quad, is actually made out of 2 triangles, and you can see this clearly over here. So what this tells you in 3D modeling, that the most basic 3-dimensional shape, a solid shape that you can create where you can visually see in Blender or in any 3D modeling package, is always going to be a triangle. Okay, so I'm going to Control Z this to bring it back. But over here you can see that that hidden triangle is basically duplicate. There are 2 triangles that make up a quad. Okay, so the other thing that you can do is here I'm just going to go ahead and select all these vertices over here to select this. If we go under Mesh and go under faces, you'll see that you have 2 options. You have triangulate faces, and you can take 2 triangles that are just like this over here and turn it into a quad. So if we go under faces and we do triangulate faces, you'll see if I just deselect everything that it puts a line across this. Now we know that when we actually lifted up this vertex over here, the line for the triangle was going this way. But when you do that, for some reason Blender does it the opposite way. It doesn't actually matter how it does it. So if I take this and now move it up or move it like this, you can see that it's just a triangle. Okay, because you can easily just rotate this edge over here, right, and just do Control A, you'll see that it goes the same way that it was. Okay, so I'm just going to Control Z everything over here, and I'm going to get rid of this line. So that's an important concept to understand about what exactly is a quad. A quad is something that is made up of 2 triangles. Okay, so now let's go ahead and switch to object mode, and now we're going to click on this face and just zoom in over here. So now I'm going to go into edit mode. So the question is, really, why do we model with quads? And the reason behind this is that if I just go over here into the face and just rotate it like this, is because what quad allow us to do is model very rapidly our 3D models with very soft curves, right? And this is only possible when you have two triangles together, okay? But we're going to try to understand this a little better, what is actually going on over here. So one of the key concepts with quads is that not only that they allow you to very quickly model your design very quickly with the subdivision modifier over here, but what quads allow you to do, as you've seen, that we can actually select these edge loops, so we can determine as to how these quads are actually traveling around the human head over here. So if I do Alt and let's say click on this, you can see that I can very quickly select this entire edge loop. But in reality, what's really happening is that each quad is made up of multiple triangles, right? So you can see that using quads, we can really control how the topology that defines the 3D structure of our model can be created using this methodology, right? So you can see that I can also click on edges and just click over here. You can see that it's just going to select the entire edge, okay? So as a test, what I'm going to show you first of all is I'm going to shut this modifier off. I'm just going to click on this eye over here. So you can see that this is really our original 3D model, and you can see that it's super low resolution over here, but this is really a useless 3D model. What we really want is we want the model that this subdivision modifier is going to give us. So if under the subdivisions, under view, I'm just going to click on this one over here. So you'll see that what this is actually going to do is give us a three-dimensional model that is going to be created with quads, okay? Now, in order to see that model, what you can do is you can simply click on this tab over here and then go under wire and then switch to object mode. So what this is showing you is that if you applied this subdivision modifier, actually clicked on this button, it will capture the model with these faces, okay? So I'm going to go back over here and make sure that I also click on draw all edges. And the reason for this is you can see that sometimes Blender doesn't display all the lines for this. I'm not sure what the reasoning behind this is. They do have this option over here. So it's just going to show you all the lines, okay? So let's go ahead and see how this works. So we're going to go under the modifiers tab. Remember, you're not going to save this file. Well, I'm just explaining to you some things here because we're going to make a change in the year. Now, obviously, before you apply the mirror modifier and the subdivision modifier to capture this 3D model that we are creating very quickly, we would have separated the eyes. But I'm not going to do that right now because I just want to explain to you some things over here. So in the subdivisions over here in the view, this is showing you that this is the number of quads that it's going to use to create your actual 3D model. If I click on this, you can see that it's going to add a lot more quads over here. But this is way too many quads for us to actually capture the 3D model. We're going to keep it at 1. And the render over here is really just for rendering. How many subdivision levels do you want to use, okay? So right now, go ahead and click on the mirror modifier. And on the subsurface, making sure that it's on 1, go ahead and just click it, apply it. Now, under this object tab over here, go ahead and deselect the wire. Okay, so now if you take a look, you'll see that without the subdivision, remember when I had turned it off, it was a very low resolution of the 3D structure. Now, since the subdivision is not there, what we've done is actually captured a very low resolution version of our 3D model. But what's important to grasp from this is that if you do tab, you can see that what Blender does, it creates quads for you automatically, okay? So the reason I'm bringing this up is that if you export your 3D model to, let's say, a gaming engine like Unity, what's actually going to happen is that if we do the A to select everything, go under meshes, under faces, I'm going to do triangulate faces, okay, and A to D select. So you can see that these are the actual triangles. So gaming engines, this is how they actually see your model. And if you have worked with gaming engines, you will actually see the 3D model appear this way. It'll just have all these triangles over here. So you can see that the 3D engines don't care about quads, okay? It's only in the 3D modeling package that we use quads to create the 3D model so we can control how the topology flows. That's the whole idea behind it, right? So you can look at this and say that, well, that doesn't make any sense. This idea of quads really looks like a useless concept, is because regardless of what you do, it's always going to turn everything into triangles anyways, right? But that's really not the case. It's because it has to do with how 3D modeling works in 3D modeling packages. Because if you come in here, let's say, since we've converted this, if you click on the face and let's say click on this face, if I do the Alt key and just click on this face, you can see that it only selects one face. Before, when we had quads, when we had pressed the Alt key down, we were actually able to select a whole bunch of quads going all the way down. But we can't do that with triangles. So what this tells you is that it's very difficult to create three-dimensional models with triangles. So this is why we use quads in 3D modeling packages that allows us to create very quickly any type of three-dimensional object that we want. But you should always know in the back of your mind that it's always triangles, okay? And if I click on the edges over here, for example, if I click on this edge and do Alt, you can see that it doesn't know what to do. And the reason it's doing this is because when you Alt and just right click this edge, it's because of these edges. It doesn't know which direction do you want to go. Do you want to go to this edge, this edge, this edge, this edge, or this edge, right? So this is why triangles, modeling with triangles is a very difficult concept. Okay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go back and load that back up again, because now just keep everything that I've just said into the back of your mind. So we're going to click on this again.